Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your hosts.
Hello and welcome to the Do Good X podcast. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being here. If you are a loyal listener or if you are tuning in for the first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Kimberly Danielle and I will be the host, the sole host for this particular episode. I am a community builder. I am a coach and a communication strategist. And I come from generations of faith-driven entrepreneurs who believe that our purpose should drive us to contribute to the common good. I'm really looking forward to our episode today because we have a tech founder joining us who has magnetic energy, who is vibrant, and who is making an impact through his businesses. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in and introduce you to someone no other than the Jay Johnson, CEO and co-founder of Intel. I remember connecting with Jay back in, I believe it was early 2023, and I was really inspired by his story. I was really inspired by the energy and passion that he has about what he is up to in his businesses and the trajectory of his businesses and the impact that he has been making and I know will continue to make. At the time, he was just getting started with the second business, getting that off the ground, which is Prep Intel. Prep Intel leverages technology to solve the challenges faced by educational institutions and also by military recruiters who are identifying and engaging with prospective students. And it recruits efficiently, specifically with the use of AI and machine learning. Jay is also the founder of College Prep U, which provides parents and students with accurate information to help them properly prepare for education during and after high school. He is a Morehouse alum. Do Good X, we're in Atlanta, so we know a lot about Morehouse. And he is also the president of the Birmingham chapter of the 100 Black Men of America. He also previously served as an executive for a Fortune 100 company, is a certified collegiate independent counselor. I mean, the list just goes on. He sits on many advisory boards from the University of Alabama to the University of Pennsylvania, the Naval Academy, Clark Atlanta University. He's a little bit of everywhere. And finally, I will say, he is currently an entrepreneur in residence with Techstars and has been selected to participate in many competitive accelerator programs for his businesses and for his leadership as an entrepreneur. So welcome, Jay. We are excited to have you here with us today.
Oh, Kimberly, thank you for being here, man. That just made me think about all the things that I just do on a just period, man. It's a blessing, but whew, that's a lot of things. That's a lot on that plate, I tell you.
Look, I don't know how you juggle it all. So I want to get started by talking about the journey toward Prep Intel. It seems to be prompted by your first business, College Prep U, and College Prep U was ignited by helping someone in the church you attended. I don't know if it was the church you attended at the time or you continue to attend now, but I want to hear a little bit about what began your entrepreneurial journey and what was your faith community's role in that?
Yeah, so excellent question. So when I was working in corporate America, I literally wanted to do something that was different, but I loved the job that I was in. And I just so happened to be able to fall into higher ed. And being able to work in higher ed, one of my mentors was the president of the college, asked me to come and work there. And I enjoyed it. Like literally, I was working in the admission office and I was just helping out. Like I wasn't making the money that I was used to making, but the impact was just like phenomenal. And so that alone was like worth the price. And so I ended up leaving higher ed after 3.5 years, going back to corporate America. And it just so happened that during that time period, I had made so many connections Because I was in admissions, I had to learn all my competitors. So I knew so many different institutions in which I was competing against, and I knew what it took to get in, but I also knew a lot of the representatives. So in church, people knew that I worked at a college and they knew I knew admissions. And so one family came up and they were like, well, hey, we got a daughter that is brilliant. She's a student athlete, and we're trying to decide which school to go to, and then how can we leverage scholarships. And most importantly, we don't want the bulk of her scholarships coming from the GI Bill, which her dad was a veteran, as well as athletics. She has the academics to get a academic scholarship that should cover everything. We just need to source through and know the lingo. And so they just happened to look at a school that's local to Alabama, an HBCU. And I said, oh, well, I know the director of admissions over there. So I was like, but I know their requirements and their policies. I was like, do you know you could appeal their scholarships? And she was like, what does that mean? I was like, well, if you're not happy with the academic scholarship, you literally can say, hey, I want to challenge it and want to know if there's more money for me to get. Because what typically happens is schools have allocated the amount of money for scholarships, in their annual budget. And so once they have that assessed, not every student would be able to go to every college, And so the students who would have qualified for certain scholarships but decided to attend another institution, that money's still available. And so you can appeal it and to some institutions, and depending on their policies, you could be granted. But you have to show that you're going to a school that the institution feel is equivalent. And so once I told them that, typed up the letter, sent it off to the school. They wanted to see what other institutions she was going to, and she ended up getting a full academic ride. So then she played basketball, and it was a choice and not a requirement. And so my mom was like, yo, you should start a company doing this. And I thought about it. I was like, man, I met some independent, college recruiters, when I used to hit the road and stuff. And I was like, they were always cool. They used to just send us students. And I was like, man, you make my job so much easier to hit my quota. And I was like, okay, well, let me look into it. And I realized that higher education is one of the only few institutions where they empower an adult to go sell a service to a kid that costs over $100,000, and their parents are not around for this transaction, and all other responsible adults are encouraging that kid to go and talk to them. And so I was like, man, there has to be a way that, there's a gap, because working in the institution side, you get a student, they're super excited, and then they leave. So it's like, well, why do they leave? Well, money. They realized it wasn't a good fit. Tragedy. It's a number of things. So that hurts the institution, with their retention rate as well as their graduation rate, but it also can hurt the student because their credits may not transfer to any other institution they're looking to go to. And if they owe a balance, then they can't transfer anywhere. And so I was in church and I was like, man, let me really just think about it. And the pastor at the time was doing these series on just like taking risk. And I was like, yo, I'm all about risk. And so I was like, well, let me do my due diligence. And it was funny because I thought about joining a franchise. They had a franchise that, did college admission advising. And so I went to go look at this franchise and I was like, man, this could be cool, but I'm looking at all the barriers that this franchise put around. I'm looking at the profit margins. I'm looking at the other franchisee owners, and I'm looking at the owner of the franchise. And I was like, it just doesn't make sense. It's not adding up. Like they say, the math ain't math. And so I was like, yeah, no. So I prayed. I was like, it was crazy because it happened July 2017 during the solar eclipse. So literally I was driving to this city to go view this place this business, and the eclipse was happening. And I was like, man, when I got there, I saw the sun, get blacked out, got dark, and then the light came on. So I kind of took that metaphorically. Like in my mind, I didn't really know how to put a company like this together. So it was dark. I got there. Actually it was light because the idea, I got there, saw how he had it. It was cool, but I didn't like the feeling. So to me, that was darkness. And then when I left and I was coming back, I was like, man, I can do this on my own. And then that's when I felt like the light came back out to me. And I was like, I'm going to start up College Prep U. And so literally off of a consultation and a client in church, the word saying taking risk, as well as just, using, God's beautiful creation of just like the eclipse, solar eclipse, as a way to kind of help me see what I know I can do and I don't need anyone else to put a barrier on me, help me start College Prep U.
That's a word, as they would say. The dots that you connected. And I mean, that's really powerful. That's really powerful. And
Yeah.
I think the success, the trajectory of your success is shown for College Prep U, because in the first year, this blew me away when we first talked early last year, which was in the first year, you had 37 students for College Prep U. And then in the second year, that increased to 2,500. Yes, you all heard me right. 2,500, 37 to 2,500. That's a significant increase just in 1 year. So was that growth unexpected, or did you take specific steps to make this happen intentionally? You know, it might be unexpected and really connected to your faith story and trusting, taking that risk. And this is what happened. But I want to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, it was completely unexpected. I think that when I built College Prep U, I literally built it for like your middle class to upper middle class families because of my price point. Like College Prep U is a for-profit. It is not a nonprofit, you know. So with that being said, I have fees, I have things I need to charge. And I knew in my heart of heart, because of the fact that, you know, I am a capitalist wrapped in a socialist blanket, that I wanted to be able to serve, you know, those who are moderate to low income. I just needed to figure out how. And so, but I needed to pay bills in order for the company to grow. And so the 37 clients that I had came really because of the fact that I just was doing good business. And, you know, one thing that I believe heavily in is just like sewing. So, you know, I would sew. You know, I didn't have that much, but anytime I had a problem, I made sure that one, my company tie, on top of my own ties, it was separate. And then I would sew for my company. And so anytime I had a challenge, like, you know, as entrepreneurs, we have this challenge of like growth, like trying to figure out, do I have enough money to hire someone else? But I need to get more business. So it's like, I realized that if I'm always working in my business, I end up working for my business. And so the only way that I can really help seek good knowledge outside of maybe some mentors is to say, you know what, I'm going to put in, you know, for the company, and I'm going to sow this seed. I'm going to say, this is where I am right now, and I just need help. And it just so happened that one of my Morehouse brothers, who's also my attorney, connected me to a guy here in Birmingham, and he had a company that was similar. He had a nonprofit version of me. And so I was like, man, okay, you know, I already knew who he was. I knew who his company was because I did my due diligence when I was, you know, looking at the market to see, you know, how feasible opening up my company would be. And I was like, man, why are you tying me to this dude? Now, you know, he knows I'm here, and now he knows who I am. But I've been watching him for like 6 months. And so watching him in his company. And so I reached out to the guy, and I was like, yo, you know, let's connect. He came by my office the same day, and he saw like my setup, he saw my hunger, he saw my grit. But most importantly, he saw that I had a full curriculum that he had access to, and his curriculum was stagnant. And so he was like, well, hey, you know, I have an opportunity if you like, how much would it cost if you could help me, you know, with this contract that I have? And so for me, you know, like, he's my competitor, but I believe in collaboration. Like, you know, you can collaborate with a competitor. And the best, I guess, analogy I can give is like, I have a MacBook with Microsoft Office on it, right? And so, you know, at the end of the day, like, yes, we're competitors, but we can operate in the same space. There's plenty of kids. We're serving the same mission. But, you know, in my office, I have like 3 private offices, and then we have like a big lobby area, and everyone got a chalkboard wall, and each one I have a scripture. And in my office, I have a scripture in the top right-hand corner, and it says, like, whoever sits in front of me can't fool me. Like, and I'm just paraphrasing because, I mean, I don't know it all directly, but I just know that when I found that verse, I said, oh, anybody who come in my office, you sit in front of me, can't fool me. And so anytime before I do business, I always look up at that scripture, and they'll look down, and I just make my best decision that I feel like it's God led. So he was like, well, you know, what is your expenses? Like, how much would you charge me? And so I'm like, man, look, I just need like about $85,000. You know, they'll allow me to hire someone. You know, they'll allow me to just like take my load off what I put on payroll for myself, and it'll, you know, pay some bills, as people say when they get ready to roll the commercials. So I was like, you know, this is what I need. And he was like, all right, cool, we can do that. He was like, can you serve like, 1,100 students? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. We can figure it out. I got a curriculum. And so he was like, well, I need you to meet these individuals. And they were like executive directors of, some organizations that actually fund him, and they work within the school district. It was Gear Up Birmingham. So the Gear Up is a nationwide organization that helps kids get prepared for college. They track a cohort of students from 6th and 7th grade all the way to their first year of college. So they hire partners to help them with their metrics, to help them get along the way. In their grant, they have to hire partners. He was one of their partners. I didn't even know anything about Gear Up. So I had to meet up with these individuals, and one of the individuals came to me and they was like, Jay, look, we breaking bread, and she was like, I see your setup. I love the food. I like your passion. What are you doing for you and your company? And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I'm, doing what I can. And she was like, yeah, no, like, why don't you apply for us? And I was like, well, I felt conflicted because I was like, man, I don't want to, cut this guy out. And he just invited me to the table, and you're the reason why you're in my office. He's the reason why you're in my office. And she was like, yeah, no, he ain't the reason. She was like, it's someone that's the reason, but he ain't it. And so it just so happened that her CFO is one of my church members. And he was like, yo, you got to meet up with Jay. She was like, I wasn't even going to meet up with you because you work with this guy. She was like, but your one of your friends and your church member is my CFO. And he was like, you got to meet up with Jay. He got a great program he building, and go see it for yourself. So she was like, yo, can you scale your program to meet up with over 2,000 students? And I was like, yes, I can. I can do it. No problem. And so she was like, all right, we'll draw a plan out. She's like, but before you even give me a proposal for that, I need to test you out. I said, all right. She's like, summer coming up, we need a program, 3 weeks. We'll give you like 30, 40K to run this program. And I was like, 30, 40,000. I was like, okay, bet. I only needed 80. I was like, so you want me to get 30, 40,000 for 3 weeks worth of work? Say less. I do. I got to do the marketing? She's like, no, we'll take care of the marketing. You put the plan together. You find the venue. You do all these things, and we got you squared away. And I was like, oh, all right, great. Put a plan together, and it was crazy because it was God. I went to church, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to tithe. I was like, man, I think we had because we was getting paid by the families, I sold a big seed. I think I sold like $2,500. And so, and I only had maybe like 4,000 in the business account. Sold that money, went in, put a plan together, did the summer program. She loved it. Before the summer program was over, she was like, yo, I need you to apply for the fall because we're not going to do business with him. We want you. And she was like, I'm letting you know right now, the number that you need to stay under is 250,000. And I was like, man, that's 5% of what I tithed. And I was like, what's sold? And so literally, I put up a plan. I was able to hire people, and that's how we scaled from 37 to 2,500. And we've been overseeing. So that program lasted for another 2 to 3 years before their grant ran out. But we stayed on as the college and readiness consultants for Birmingham City School District, and we've been doing that for the last 5.5, 6 years. And my company only been open 7.
Ooh, what a journey! I'm hearing many different things. One, the value of community,
Yep.
and like having people that see you. And so I hear that. I hear also a shift in your ideal customer, because you went from the customer to a B2C model to a B2B model. And that seems to really help with you scaling. And might I assume that you were prepared for this when you were asked, and for that level of scale in that moment, you were prepared for this. So I'm curious what challenges and also what opportunities did you experience in scaling and growing your business this fast?
Yeah. So no, I wasn't prepared at all. I think one of the biggest things is I understood their vision. I did my due diligence on the organization. I saw how they met with, what other previous partners they had, or even current partners, and how they operated. And I had to think about what's the best way to see over 2,000 students at, like in a significant amount of time and still be able to have impact. And I realized that, my B2C model was individualized. Students will come to our office, we sit down with them over about an hour or so, and we, formulate their plan. We'll meet up with them frequently, depending on what grade they were in. But for this one, these kids were in like 10th and 11th grade. And so it was like, man, how do we meet with the masses and still be impactful and still be able to implement our curriculum? And I was like, oh, well, instead of trying to just like do it in my office, no, I'm going to bring it to them. Because one thing I realized is that like not every kid has reliable transportation or parents. You know, I didn't want any of them to fall through the cracks. And if I'm expecting to be paid to see every student, I didn't want, and I did a flat fee. I didn't do a per student fee. I did a flat rate. I didn't want to be held accountable to those who did not show up to my office. And then when the next year was time to renew, be like, you only seen out of 2,500 students, 25 of them. Well, only because 25 of them live closer to my office and others don't. And so I said, hey, we want to go into the schools. So we decided to like go, and I presented my program to all the guidance counselors first. And I needed their buy-in because my program was really built to help the guidance counselors with the students in college readiness. And so once I answered all their questions and they signed off on it, I then went and met with all the principals. And I said, well, hey, here's what the program overview looked like. Tell me what best way we can penetrate your school and how we can be impactful without being disruptive. And so then we coordinated with certain teachers that were assigned to us as like campus coordinators. We hit all the core classes that every student had to take. So your English, your U.S. history, things of that nature. And then we penetrated. And so literally like certain schools are on block schedules where, of course, it's like a class is 90 minutes. We'll come in and on that day, we'll relieve the teacher. You know, what teacher don't want to break from having to teach? So we'll take maybe like 30 minutes out of that 90 minutes and we'll go over our curriculum for every class. And then for the days they did not have block scheduling, then we would just penetrate the homeroom. So we'll go to homeroom and we'll do it. So that way we were able to touch any student. And then we offered after school hours. So those who wanted to come to our office could. We also offered weekend, and then we did workshops for the parents. So anything that we could do to get in front of the parents, because we're educating not only the parents, but the students, then we created essentially a bigger office, and I made the schools my office. So they designated spots for us. Then students can then come to us during the school day if we weren't able to penetrate their class, and we put them on the schedule. So the principals, the teachers, and everyone else knew when we were coming in and where we were going to be located, what classes we would go to, and then we just put in long work days at each school, which a long work day is like 9 to 2, right? That's nothing. With an hour for lunch. So with that being said, it just made it much easier to penetrate, and then we became more effective, and then we just started tracking the data. One of the biggest challenges that I had was really just being okay with being uncomfortable and really knowing that, you know, God put this opportunity in front of me, and I did everything right in his house first within my heart. You know, it wasn't what I put into the offering. It wasn't me going to church. It was like, yo, I really am building this business because I want to be impactful. I need you to help me. I built this business in your house. Now your house, all I'm doing is spreading it out. And so spreading your word. And so literally, I didn't even have any fear after that point because I saw an organization that would believe in me. It allowed me to take that money and offer opportunities to other individuals to hire the right staff that want to come in and do what they need to do. And then, you know, I had enough sense to know that I didn't do this on my own. So it kept me very grounded, you know, in a sense, because I didn't think, oh, you know, I'm Jay, I got this on my own. No, I knew exactly where to start it. And if it wasn't for that person in church, if it wasn't for, the first family I worked with in church, if it wasn't for that word about taking risk, if it wasn't for that seed, but then if it wasn't me being a good person to where someone else in my church recognized what I was doing, it wouldn't, the opportunity wouldn't even happen.
Yeah. I'm also hearing the fact that you followed where you were called, like that next step of what the doors that open up for you in this process of kind of tuning in and co-creating and collaborating with God in developing these businesses, like doing that, continue to open up more doors. And as
Absolutely.
you're doing that, you are also giving back in different ways, including tithing, which I think can be very powerful. I want to talk a little bit about when you shifted from college prep to the launch of the second business, Prep Intel, and this new door that opened for you. What led you to the launch of your second business, Prep Intel, which you're repping today.
Yep. So it's funny because it happened in church. So my pastor was doing a series. He was doing a series called Fellowship, and it was really just like centered around guys. Wanted to get guys more involved, and it was like a podcast. And so he would have guys come, and they would discuss like real life topics. It was like just uh, male absenteeism in the household or a number of things. And so his bishop came, to deliver word one day in church and was going to do the podcast. And so I have, a couple of properties throughout Birmingham, and they have some pretty cool little rooftops, which one of them I'm on now. And I was like, well, hey, you can use my rooftop to shoot some of the series. And he was like, all right, great. So, they were there. I wasn't even going to be on the series. And he was like, Jay, we want you to be on. And I was like, all right, cool. But I was talking to the bishop first, and he was asking what I did. And I told him, and he was like, man, I have an organization out in LA, a nonprofit that, is centered around, helping students on their academic, trajectory. And we want to increase that academic trajectory. And he was like, man, this would be ideal because this is one of the gaps that we're missing. He was like, I can position you to where we can fund you and you can serve like, some of the students in Inglewood. And I was like, oh man, I was like, Callie? Okay, that works. And then I had another friend that reached out to me from Chicago and almost was similar, and I was like, man, okay. So I started thinking about it, and I was praying. I was talking to my wife. I was like, yo, what should we do and what should I do? And she was like, well, you got to grow, and you're all about growth. You got this far, making the right decisions. Go for it, right? But you make whatever decision you do. I got you. Bet. So of course, I go to church. I sow a seed. Here's my issue. I want to grow. Like we had already scaled College Prep U. Like College Prep U had already scaled to our neighboring states. So we were in 5 states already, but this is going to put me in a different area. And the money was there. All I had to do was go out there and just really just like set up shop. So I started doing my due diligence, and I was like, man, something still doesn't feel right. Like I just can't shake this feeling. And, to scale to that magnitude, of that distance, I was like, man, I'm gonna be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I was like, I don't know if I should do it, which is crazy because the money that was on the table was probably, man, 3 times my contract in some of the school districts that we were starting to work in. And so I was like, man, I can't be led by money. It's just something that's just telling me not to do it. And so I'll never forget, it was, we were doing watch hour service. And in watch hour service, the pastor was like, look to your neighbor left and right and just say, I don't know what you got going, but something's going to happen. And so a lady who I didn't know said that to me, and she hugged me. She said, I feel like you run a business, and I feel like it's about to grow beyond your control, but you can't do it. She was like, you can't be there. I don't know who you are, what you do, but you can't be there. You got to figure something out. And what you think you should do is going to be the exact opposite. And I was like, all right, well, cool. I'll take that. I receive it. I didn't know it. And to me, sometimes I fight that battle, just being honest. I fight that battle from hearing prophecy from people I don't know. And I had that battle of fighting like just prophecy as a whole. And I had to realize that, a pastor told me that prophecy doesn't mean that it's going to happen. It's just what could, and someone just has a vision. But it doesn't mean that it's going to happen because sometimes it don't happen, whether it's good or bad. You just have to know that someone had this vision and they gave it to you. So I was like, all right, whatever that meant. And so I literally started, thinking about, still trying to force the issue of going out there and thinking about going out there, start doing the planning. And I had a conversation with a friend who's in tech. And he was like, yo, you ever thought about, making your company virtual? And I was like, oh, well, we got to get online presence. We got Zoom. We got all these different things. Like, I'm already a tech company. He was like, no. Being able to deliver something that, you don't have to necessarily be there for. And I was like, someone just said that to me. So then I thought about it. I was like, if I walk out and got hit by a truck, College Prep U is closed. Anything happened to me, if I have a heart attack, anything, College Prep U closed. So then what can I do to like scale this and not have to always be in the day to day. So I talked to my staff, and it was like, well, Jay, you know, we're good because you're good, but we rely so heavily on you. But if we had a system that knew how you thought, or at least knew how to find the resources that you could outside of Google, that would be beneficial to all of us, and that can cut our training time down. I was like, man, that's right. And so I talked to a good buddy of mine who's a professor at Clemson, and he was like, yeah, man, you could do something like machine learning. And I was like, well, what's machine learning? He was like, you know, you can, you know, teach a machine to think like you think. And I was like, oh, like the algorithm side. He was like, no, it's that, but it's a little bit different. And he was like, you know, AI is about to hit the scene. Now, mind you, this was like 2.5 years ago. He was like, AI is about to hit the scene heavy on a consumer level. He was like, you know, it's already there, it's already relevant, but it's about to hit on a consumer level to where it's going to be made readily available more so to y'all. And I was like, okay, well, you know, like the Will Smith movie, the Tom Cruise movie. He's like, yeah, something like that. And so I was like, well, teach me more. And so I literally started, you know, learning more about how artificial intelligence, you know, was going to make its way and what machine learning really was, and started jumping into the tech ecosystem because I didn't understand it. It just so happened that one of my good friends is a cybersecurity attorney, and he was the highest ranking African American executive at TikTok, and he said he did the chair for cybersecurity at TikTok. So I was like, man, tell me more about this tech side. He was like, man, the biggest misconception is that people think that all tech, that tech is filled with engineers. He was like, less than 2% of people in tech are engineers or developers. And I was like, you lying. He was like, no. He was like, you got teachers, you got business people, you got marketers, you got all this stuff. You got people who code, but it's a very small few. When we look at overarching population. So me being a non-tech business founder, I was like, well, how can I grow this? And so essentially, I started using College Prep U, and I was like, hey, you know, trying to apply for different accelerators to get funding because I didn't want to foot the bill. And then next thing you know, I applied for the accelerator, and it was like, look, you know, you're good. Your numbers are great. Your company is not qualified to be a pre-seed, but you got some great traction. You got a good idea, but we can't allow you to come into this accelerator. And I was like, man, that's crazy. I just don't understand. And so I crashed a Techstars party here, right? Just literally just walked on the scene, took up a Sharpie and put my name on one of them little "Hello, my name is" badge, and just wanted to observe how the ecosystem worked. I wanted to know what they did, how they party, you know, where were they at in their faith. Like all these individuals, I just want to know what I was getting myself into, and had a couple conversations and started doing my due diligence, and I got into this little small accelerator. So what I did was I created a paradigm for myself, kind of like a college schedule. I needed a 101. Well, actually, I needed a fundamental. I needed a 099, then a 101, then a 201, 301, 401. And so each level that I got on, I realized that College Prep U could not go with me. I needed to separate because it became too confusing. And one of my friends who's a VC, a venture capitalist, he was like, well, if I gave you money, how do I know that the money I'm giving you is not going to your existing debt and it's going to go to creation? And I was like, man, I don't know. I mean, I got payroll already. That would just give me more, you know, cushion. And he was like, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's going to innovate. He was like, if for every dollar I give you, at most you can give me $2 to $3 in return. I was like, well, that's a good return. That's $3. That's 3 times your investment. He's like, yeah, I need 1,000. I said, 1,000 what? He was like, $1 for every $1. I said, man, I don't know how you're going to do that. And so that's when I realized that in tech, you know, how the money flow, it runs differently because it becomes a product that can be massively scaled and produced, and people can invest in it, and then because of the usage. And so that's when he told me, so your biggest problem is you're going out here and you're still giving College Prep U pitch, but you're not building a College Prep U product. And so the best way, and this gonna sound kind of crazy, Kimberly, but like flow with me. The best way I can separate the two is that College Prep U was like the Cosby Show. When I birthed Prep Intel, it was a different world. Same overlap, same area, same cast, same writers, you know, similar, but, you know, essentially all the work I did at College Prep U gave me my credibility, my end, made me the subject matter expert. But for Prep Intel, I needed to do something completely different, although I had that same knowledge, and I wanted to just like kind of put it out there. And so that's when I got a co-founder, which I never had one before. and we started putting together and coming up with different names, and Prep and Tell was birthed. And what was weird is I go from being a business owner to where I'm the only one who make decisions, to then being like, president of the 100 Black Men here in Birmingham, where I got an executive board, and that's a nonprofit. So I got to run everything by a group of dudes for them to make a decision, and they take their time when they want to make the decision. And then now I got a company where I got someone who is my partner, and I got to run everything by them, kind of like a marriage. And I was like, man, and on any given day, I can get a text message. I can be in front of someone, get a text message and an email, and I'm taking off all the hats and putting them on at the same time. And so that's when I realized that Prep and Tell was something completely different, and I needed to break away from what people automatically associated me with or asked with College Prep U. But then at the end of but also I needed to make sure that it was a clear understanding that it's going to be in the same arena. And, I read this book, The Art of the Pivot, and you got to be very agile in your way of thinking. And then you got to be very, you got to be able to prove that what you're building works. And with me not being a person who know tech, I didn't want to rush in, because I understood that people lost more money by not doing their due diligence, not doing focus groups, not taking their time, like not understanding the hypothesis, and then trying to prove the truth in what you really is based on a lie, because you just think people want what you're building. You don't know it. And so I was like, man, okay, so I'm taking my time. So my mindset became, I'm taking my time. And in church, we had a sermon that was on not rushing. And at the end of the day, I was like, man, so if you don't rush, it doesn't mean that you win. Like, your appointment with God is already set. So when it's time for you to die, that appointment, all he's doing is fulfilling that appointment. So ain't no point in rushing to death. Ain't no point in rushing to that appointment. Live your life, slow it down. And so my mentality came like, I'm building a tech company in a crock pot and not a microwave. So I took my time. I did many accelerators, and I set a goal for what I wanted to do. And every accelerator that I got, if I got some cash from them, I sold it and prayed for the next one, and just was really responsible about what I did. And then Prep and Tell came, and it was crazy because it was completely different than what I used to. College Prep U helps students navigate the college admission process. Prep and Tell is a platform that helps streamline the post-secondary recruitment process for recruiters. So now I'm on the other side of the match. I now work with the colleges and charge them and take my program that I'm building and make it free to students.
There is a lot in what you just shared. I wrote down different things from you moving from a tech-enabled, just being a tech-enabled business, to a tech business with Prep Intel. And then also, again, the importance of your faith, being strategic about scale, taking a risk, being eager to learn before doing, to make sure what you're doing is the right thing for your customers, for your field, right, and what you are up to. The agility, the openness to pivoting, moving from a service to a product, and having the gift, but also the challenge in having your hands in all worlds of being a solo kind of founder, running a nonprofit, and then working with a co-founder. There's so much richness in your story. For those of you who are listening, if this conversation with Jay is sparking some deeper reflection or rethinking about how you are moving in your business, make sure you keep on staying tuned, but also visit dogoodx.org, because you can subscribe to our email, keep posted on resources and tips like what Jay is sharing from other folks, and join our Do Good X LinkedIn community, where we share resources, and we provide a community for entrepreneurs and change makers. So we're going to now move to our segment Off the Cuff, where we have a series of questions that we're just going to ask Jay. And, Jay, just share what comes off the top of your head. And these are quick, fast paced, whatever comes to mind.
I got you.
So here we go. What has been the greatest lesson so far on your entrepreneurial journey?
That rejection is just redirection. Not be afraid of the no's. And honestly, the difference between anyone who is like super successful and someone who is not is the fact that that person who's super successful has taken more no's. A study was done with like some of the top professionals in the world like years ago, and the two commonalities that they found out that that each one, well, not each one, but most of them shared was, one, in order to be a professional, you need to do something for at least 10 years. Two, don't quit. That's it. So like, you have those, you follow those guidelines, you should be good to go.
What is a song title or lyric that embodies the spirit of your businesses right now?
Oh man, I got to choose another one because I'm from Atlanta, so it's gonna be something definitely trap. I honestly, I'm just gonna say I might have to say like 3 6 Mafia, tear the club up,
Mm.
because that's my mindset to everything. Like I need to go in and literally rip it all up, and then just bring it back together. So I mean, I know that's not probably the best, but I can always say Jesus Walk by Kanye West. There.
Well, you can say both. You can have a look. You can have both.
Hey, look, I'll tell you this. Anytime I get ready to close, like if I'm getting ready to go and do a presentation, one of the songs that I listen to a lot is the 10 Crack Commandments by Biggie. I keep Outkast on rotation. I love my demo day with Techstars. I use Swagger Like Us with T.I. and Jay-Z. But then, of course, in my mind, I'm always like, I'm the best. So, no one is going to beat me. So, DJ Khaled, all I do is win,
There you
even
go.
when I lose.
There you go. You all can be adding to your playlist that hypes you up for when you have to walk in the door and do a pitch or anything like that, or get your day started. Speaking of
Right.
which, what is one daily, weekly, or monthly practice that sets you up for success as an entrepreneur?
Man, I take time out for myself now. I think one of the biggest things when I was in Techstars in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in November, I had my very first panic attack. And it was like anxiety. I was away from my family. I was away from like, college prep. You had no control over that. And we had reached a point at Prep Intel in the accelerator where it was more technical. So my co-founder literally was running with this. And I just had a regiment of just like going to the office, working late, going to get something to eat, then going back to my apartment, and just like it was just silence. And so I learned that I need to really do more for me. And I was really big in that with College Prep U, because we cut an hour out of the day. Anyone that's in the office at 11 o'clock, we shut the office down. It's not lunchtime, but we shut it down. And in that time period, I learned from like Japanese businesses, the Japanese business culture, that you could take that time and take a nap, kind of reset your day, and then you go to lunch, and then you start the second half of your day. So anyone who's in my office at any given time, 11 o'clock, you may walk by my door and try to tug it. The light's going to be off, the door going to be locked, and someone's in there sleeping. I got couches everywhere. So I did not have that same mindset with Prep Intel, which I had to get back to the basics, but it was like doing things for me. So like going to sporting events, going to get a massage, getting a pedicure, doing things that I like to do. So that way I can have my own time, because people say meditate, but I ain't know how to meditate, because I'm thinking about, am I meditating? Am I meditating? But I can find meditation in just like doing stuff that I enjoy, even if it's playing video games.
Mm-hmm.
So finding time for you.
That's so important. How much of your success do you attribute to your faith versus your own grit, will, and hustle?
Yeah, like I think my grit and will came from my faith. I mean, it all runs together. It's not separate. Like I'm not in a like, it was so funny. Someone asked me, because we do March Madness just in, and that's our jam. Someone just asked me like, was I going for Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark, and I was like, both. I like both. So like, as a true person who loves sports and competition, I like both. So I'm not in a and or. It's and in both. Like I can have both. So I like Prince and Michael Jackson. I like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. So it doesn't matter to me. I don't have to choose. So my grit and my faith are one and the same.
And lastly, complete this sentence. Because of my entrepreneurial endeavors, communities will be or are more able to blank.
Because of my entrepreneurship endeavors, I think communities will recognize the importance of just like true education. People say that, but I always go in different rooms and different spaces, and I ask, "Is college for everyone?" And like 90% of the room gonna say no. So then I said, let's talk about it. Give me the challenge. Tell me why not? And of course, they throw trades and vocations and stuff like that, but most of them are housed at community colleges. College itself is an institution for higher learning. It's not just the four walls or the campus. It's anywhere after you graduate from high school that's considered post-secondary. So anytime you finish secondary school, which is high school, any post-secondary institution that offers any type of higher education to really skill you up is what college is. It just doesn't matter in the name. It doesn't matter in the traditional sense. And so me spreading that word, helps, like students who didn't think that was true or that was possible. Adults who got degrees who say that not everyone have to go to college and not really understanding the venom that's spewing into our own community, which they think they're doing something healthy, which is not, teaching them that. Educators, administrators, like even just taking that verbiage out of college recruiters' mouth and then just educating everyone and say, hey, you do learn after high school. You can go anywhere to get whatever you need. And so hopefully that's one. And then the second thing I hope the community would probably be better at is just that collaboration. Like you can work with any and everyone. Just be open to be worked with and be willing to work with others regardless of where they are in their journey.
Well, thank you so much, Shay, for taking the time among all of the spaces and places you're in that are vying for your attention. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today and share your insights. Everyone, I hope you were taking some notes. I hope that you listen to this episode in full so that you can glean some tips and tools for your journey, especially if you are a two-time founder or looking to be a two-time founder. Please keep tuning in, and I look forward to not seeing you, but I look forward to you joining us in future episodes. Until then, do good.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.